And so they didn't join the lawsuit, but people they were saying, well, our property values are gonna go down. The folks downstream were going, well, not ours. But it turns out that when they looked at the value of the property, when they did take the dam out, there was no decrease in the property value because, and as you said, Richard, now instead of being on a ski boat river, they're gonna be on a wild salmon river. Now, the value to those people who run their ski boats has gone down, but the actual dollar value of those properties is not.
Yeah.
They got a bigger yard too.
And
Yeah.
they get,
Much
they get
bigger
another
yard,
acre, of ground.
Go ahead, Alan.
Has anybody looked into the possibility of the dam breaching and the catastrophic event that would take place downstream to landowners?
Yeah, there's been an assessment of that. So part of our coalition work is getting them to update their emergency action plan if something like that were to happen, and kind of lay out the scenario if it were to happen. The immediate risk is the boat ramp at Amaker, the trailer park right there. And it'll have significant issues all the way down, but if it's, depending on what time of year, whether people are drift boat fishing or what, it could have significant loss of people, property, and damage. Like, that's just where it's at. It's all, they do have insurance is what I'm told, so.
Do they?
Yeah, I wonder if the insurance owner knows.
Well, I mean, the liabilities are colossal. Personally, the people that are on that board are personally liable.
Yeah.
Furthermore, has there been a seismic analysis about what would happen when the big one occurs? Is that dam gonna
I have
collapse?
no idea.
I'm going to bet again that they don't.
Well, I-5 is gonna fall down and kill it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I have faith,
only have a
I have
couple
faith.
slides. Let me finish a couple slides and we get into all the questions and stuff. Soda Springs Fish Passage. Fish Passage was finished in 2015. It took years and years. There was tons of analysis done. Upstream and downstream migration was allowed. That's the main thing that we're really concerned about too. Like, we're worried about all these adult fish going upstream at Winchester, but those juveniles are actually coming and falling straight over onto the bedrock below. So there's gotta be catastrophic mortality on juveniles. However, even the biological assessment they said there's never been a study done on this. It's like, okay, well, let's do the study. So the cool thing about Soda Springs is state-of-the-art fish passage downstream. They count all the juveniles going out. Fortunately or unfortunately, it costs them around $70 million to adhere to state and federal regulations.
At Soda Springs.
Correct. And of course, Pacific Corp owns that, so they have a huge incentive to pay that $70 million.
And that was for, I believe, only 11 more miles of upstream migration. 7 more.
7 miles
$70 million
of prime
for 7
habitat.
more miles.
This one is 100. This will open up 160 miles of prime spawning habitat. So the hope is, if Winchester were not there, those fish would easily pass that area, and they could move further up throughout the watershed, especially with climate change, and spawn in the higher up tributaries, utilize that higher up area. The delay that's causing them is getting more catch rate, and they're spawning further down within the watershed. But I put this up here because I really think it's really cool how they engaged with that. So I wrote an op-ed a couple months ago, and these were my 2 asks at the end. Require the dam owners, they have 2 options. Require the dam owners to finally overcome the indifference to the responsibility and repair and rebuild the dam properly to bring its ladder up to state and federal regulations, or remove the dam. We've offered numerous times to raise the public funds that are necessary to remove that dam for free to those owners. And we'll take care of all of it to get it out of the way, as long as they're willing to sign on the line. So it's totally up to them. The one thing, if you are gonna repair it, you're gonna have to maintain it, and keep maintaining it for years. The last thing I was gonna end with tonight is, this came out on January 13th. This is a report on a bathymetric survey done on the reservoir pool. And
How much water is in there? So they look at the bottom and they calculate the volume?
So
Acre
it's
feet.
basically related to their water right. Their water right is for 391 acre feet, and it was measured at 439.1 acre feet of water being stored behind that dam. So they're not
In January.
in January. So they're not in compliance with their dam, with their water right. They gave two options: lower the reservoir pool immediately, or apply for additional storage.
Interesting.
Oregon Water Resources says they're being in compliance right now, or they're being in compliant. They're working with engineers to try to make a solution to this. Unfortunately, I don't know if there is a solution, because as soon as you dewater, lower your reservoir pool, the ladder will no longer function as intended, so they might have to update the ladder. But if they update the ladder, it triggers fish passage, so they can't change the ladder. If they do they apply for additional storage, that triggers fish passage. They can apply for temporary storage, but it's kind of like a Band-Aid to the issue. They pulled a rabbit out of the hat before with us, so we don't know what will happen from this, but they're storing too much water. So if you're a water right user downstream of them, you could call the water master and let them know.
Especially in August and September.
Correct.
That's when you want that water.
The other issue this brings up is when they propose the repairs, they can't legally refill that reservoir.
Oh, cool.
Because they don't have the rights to the water to refill.
Oh,
So,
So
see what happens.
if the dam was removed
Yeah,
and all the fish were able to go right on upstream, and so we have so many more fish upstream, we would not need a Rock Creek fish hatchery.
possible. Oh, yeah,
So is that the Winchester Dam causing us to have a Rock Creek fish hatchery?
possibly. I think social pressure is causing a lot of that. But realistically, and putting that out there, if it were gone, it would take a few years to see the population reseed itself and see a benefit to removing the dam. And you gotta think about salmon and generations of fish, so they're usually, salmon or steelhead, they're usually like 4 or 5 year old fish. Steelhead spend 2 years in freshwater and 2 years in the salt. Salmon, it's usually about the same. Usually they spend about a year more in the salt before they come back out. So if we were to remove this dam this year, it would still be 5 years until we saw a benefit from that. A great example is Soda Springs. There was no fish passage up there. They put in fish passage, and up until last year, they saw incrementally more and more spring chinook than they've ever had before up over that dam. And they're utilizing that habitat, which is awesome to hear, right? Obviously, we don't like Soda Springs, but it's so awesome to see that those fish are repopulating that. And it just shows that if we allow them to do their thing and access these wonderful areas, they're gonna thrive. We do think with climate change, everything's getting pushed further up into watersheds in terms of spawning and cold water effusion and that sort of thing. So it's essential that some of these areas are opened up and we give access to the wild fish to do their thing and not prevent natural selection.
I think it's an interesting compare and contrast that here's the corporation that had their feet on the proverbial fire that spent, what, was $80 million
For the fish passage up there?
to repair the fish pit. So that's what they're willing to do, but here's a bunch of landowners, and it's a handful of very wealthy people, and the reason they're getting away with their stuff is they're politically well connected. And nobody wants to rock the boat, because they don't want to get yelled at over at the country club.
The attorney that's representing them, Dominic Colo.
There you go, and Ron Yoakum. And so they're politically well connected, but here's a corporation that doesn't give a damn about man or God, willing to spend $80 million to have peace, and here's a bunch of well-connected people that know damn good and well, no pun intended, that this is a real serious detriment to the fish runs, but they're down here at the fish derby popping up and down about how much they care about the fish runs, but they're not willing to put up the money. And if that kind of money had to get put up, they want public money, lottery money, somebody else's money. They don't want to put up that money. So what they're doing is they want to put a Band-Aid on there, the minimum that they get away with to have their pool at the expense of the rest of the county. And what would happen if the fish went extinct, where there was a serious threat, an endangered listing of the fall Chinook? What would that do to the logging in this county?
There's a petition to lift Chinook right now pending.
Is that spring or fall?
Both.
Both. What's that gonna do to the timber industry?
Well, we'll see.
We got
So what can we do to help?
So I got an idea, Connie, I'm glad you asked.
Yes.
I think we as a group should petition to allow us to shut down the river for 3 weeks because we want to water ski. And that's what they're doing. If they're gonna do it for them, they gotta do it for us, right?
Well.
No, I just like to reframe,
We could.
yeah, I'd just like to reframe
Yes.
what they're asking for.
Yeah.
They want to shut the river down for 3 weeks so they can water ski.
A good point to make though on this topic of 3 weeks. So, Water Watch Oregon removed Gold Ray Dam. I think it was in 2015 on the Rogue River. When they did their removal process, ODFW did not grant them 1 minute to block fish passage. So they weren't allowed to stop any migration whatsoever. They did so with using coffer dams and removing those dams, and they made it happen. So here is a group that's really working to restore the fishery, help promote the fishery, and here's a group that, you know, they're trying to do the good thing and repair their dam, but shutting down the migration for 3 weeks seems a little questionable why ODFW would allow them to do that, but not an organization that's removing a dam to not have 1 minute. The same fellow that signed off on the 3 weeks is the same fellow that signed off on it.
He picked August because it's just low water.
August is the in-water work window. So the in-water work window is from July, I think it's like 12th through August 27th actually. 28th, I believe. And the reason they picked that time, you have the least amount of ESA listed fish moving through at that time, which they picked the right window. I'll give it to them. Like, if they were gonna pick one time to shut the river down for 3 weeks, it would be the time that they picked. But realistically, they don't need that long. But I wanna, Connie, like, share this with everyone you know. Like, we need to bring the grassroots advocacy throughout the community so that folks, like, this camera is really bringing a lot of interest to the dam. I think it's cool. It's cool to be able to see those fish go through, but it's also bringing in a lot of value to it as well. And folks need to understand, like, this is a barrier to us restoring our fisheries populations that would help benefit this entire community. It would even help benefit those corporations that John was talking about from the beginning. It would bring people in from everywhere. People still come in to fish our rivers. So share this with anyone and everyone. If anyone's interested in writing an op-ed in the paper or putting an op-ed out there, that'd be great. Share with everyone about their plans for the repair using polyurethane. Share with your local city councilor. I would say contact your county commissioner, but
Well, that's a waste of time.
Well, a few of us in this room are in the Democratic Party.
Okay.
And so I would think that one way you can get something done is maybe come into one of our online forums, and we push that out. And then we also talk about what can be done within the political system. I'm concerned when you tell me things about what these government administrative people are doing, and I think that needs to go up to the elected officials.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's something that, you know, the folks of us who are quite a few activists in the Democratic Party are in the room right now.
Great.
So I think that that would be one way on the political side, because all the 501c3s don't want to do politics. But the reality is, that's what's gonna change a lot of things.
Yeah.
I am advocate for that dam to be removed, so who can do that? Seriously, no, that's my question, I don't
Who
care.
can remove it?
It's not about just the fish runs, to me, it's about what that man's over there said. You know, our public land, water being used for a ski lake for the wealthy here is not appropriate. How does that get removed, period? What's the mechanism? Who has the power? The feds, the state? Somebody does, guaranteed.
Because there's an ESA listed species there, if they're taking take or delay is part of take, then, they should act. And they either have to repair the entire fish ladder and everything to modern standards, or, move the dam. And that's up to the owners on what they wanna do, and that's where this litigation case is going, on proving whether or not there is take occurring. So it's gotta be proven in a court of law, as we all know. But if we get the okay to take the dam out, the landowner agreement from them, if they sign on the dotted line, we will be able to organize everyone to help remove that dam for free to them.
The numbers that I've heard from Jim McCarthy at Water Watch is that it'll cost about $10 million to take the dam out. We would raise that. We would raise that from public and private sources. In order to bring that dam completely up to compliance and rebuild a state-of-the-art fish ladder is gonna be $70, $80 million. And that would be the Winchester Water Control District spending that money. Because, as Kirk said, and I think most of us agree, we don't want public dollars being spent on a private ski lake. But, so they've raised $3 million to do another patch
Yeah.
on that dam that's gonna last 5 years.
Well, their property value is never gonna be equal to spending $70 million to keep.
Right, right,
the
and
dam
so the thing is that what, they're invested in the recreation that they get on that lake.
And
And,
nobody else.
but certainly their property values would not go down, if anything, they
They
would
go
go up
up.
because they would have more, they would literally have, everybody would get, an extra acre or whatever of land. So they would have more land and they would be on essentially, the bottom end of a wild and scenic river. And so there are a lot of people for whom that would be a tremendous value.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so that, their property values would not decrease, so don't let anybody use that argument with
Yeah.
you.
And the other argument that's being made is that we get our water from this dam. That's not true. We will still get our water just fine. The intake is down below in the main channel. Even removing this dam, we will still be able to get plenty of water.
Just like on wild water,
Go ahead, Al.
basin water.
Let's talk lamprey. Do you have the historical numbers?
I don't.
Okay, well, I got them right here. So, historically, before the lamprey, or before the smallmouth bass, up into the 60s and stuff, we had an estimate of about 350 lamprey annually crossing the Winchester Dam. And we went from that number to a dozen a few years ago. That's how bad the lamprey have crashed. They should be listed
That's
as
because the
endangered.
lamprey crashed, not because the dam got worse?
No, not necessarily.
Smallmouth bass are the biggest.
A lot of contributing factors, but it does correlate with the population explosion of the smallmouth bass.
Oh,
But they have been going down everywhere else as well, up and down the west coast. Of course, there's invasives everywhere else as well.
And suction dredging.
And actually, the dam, because of the cribbing, the wood cribbing and stuff, they found that the lamprey were, they couldn't make it up around the 90-degree corner so well, and so they were finding little holes and stuff and actually hibernating in the wood of the dam. Now, whether it's good for them to hibernate in pressure-treated wood,
Yeah.
I didn't have to take that into consideration. But one of the main problems is the lamprey amicetes, the babies, the juveniles. These fish are just like a salmon. They go up to the headwaters and spawn. They'll find wood. They hibernate for almost a year, and then have their young out migrate. And as amicetes, they're like a little squiggly worm, almost little tiny eels, and they're filter feeders, and so they need the sediment on the banks and wherever they can find it. And as they just kind of make their way out to the ocean. Well, anytime you put a dam, you cut off the natural gravel and sediment flow. And so behind this dam, like all dams, the sediment gets backed up, and it's inadvertently created a great breeding ground and living area for these amicetes. Well, when they draw down the water to work on the dam, they're killing thousands of these.
There's no way they can
these
take that
amicetes.
sediment out and.
They're gonna work really, the ODFW is requiring them to work hard to do fish collection while they draw it down, so it's slowly, and there's a ton of people out there working. There's definitely gonna be some mortality, but, it is something that they're requiring.
Back in 2013, they put sprinklers out there.
Yeah, so there was a researcher, his name's Ralph Lampman, of course with a name like that, when you're picking your path, he's become one of the most noted lamprey specialists in the Pacific Northwest. And he was working there when they drew it down, and he called me at the Umpqua Watershed's office and wanted volunteers to help save all these little, amicetes and stuff. And so thousands of them died. I heard that the tribe had sued them, and then I asked somebody at the tribe a couple of years later, and they couldn't talk about it. So
Yeah, I
so
know
I
the
don't know if you-
Confederated Tribe of the Grand Ronde wrote a letter about it. I don't know the stance for Calgary. I know it's important to them.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what
They're not gonna rock the boat.
Yeah, I think that they're being hush-hush about it.
They're
With
assimilated.
the sediment retention as well, it creates a void downstream from the dam. So even if the amicetes, grow up and they make it down through the fish ladder or find their way through the dam, there's suddenly a void where there's not the sediment that they need to hide, and they're just fed to the smallmouth.
So, if we wait long enough, the subduction zone earthquake will come around and it will take the dam down. And if the dam comes down through causes such as that, can we stop them from rebuilding it?
Oh, I like that question.
I believe they will not be able to rebuild it.
Yeah.
If they do, they would have to bring it to state and federal fish passage regulations, which would be very expensive.
Let's get real.
So-
if that dam comes down from the earthquake, that's gonna be the least of our problems. Have you seen any of the news from Turkey?
Yeah.
So I do want to say, John has my
Say
email.
what?
John can share my email with everyone. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. If you want help drafting an op-ed or writing something that you want to release, please let me know. We want to make sure that everything's factually correct. We don't want to just be throwing stuff out there about certain things.
I would love to put something in the DEMS newsletter
Yeah.
that goes out to, what, 400? Less?
Asking me, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we need the address written down that we can write to and some
Yeah,
talking points.
Yeah,
It needs to be in a article we can all read and go, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, and sources other than the news
That's what
review.
I'll send to John. John, is that okay?
Yeah.
And I think I can get your email as well, and I'll just send you all some talking points, some ways to engage, ways you can write DEQ about the phone, and that sort of thing, ways that you can write a letter to the editor, ways that you can put something up. Call the governor and tell her that you're disappointed with ODFW's decision. Call the commission, ODFW commission, and say like, why did we make this decision, especially after the catastrophic year? And so I'll put this all into a little
Yes,
package.
that'd be perfect.
And Umpqua
that's
Watersheds
easy.
also has a newsletter, it could go in an Umpqua Watersheds
I've been
newsletter.
writing,
How about,
I've been putting articles.
And then, so the Democratic and the Umpqua, that should cover it.
But thank you all so much for the time.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that was very interesting.